Yeah, what up, YouTube? I just left the library. It's June the 21st. It's about 7 something right now. Anyway, I started off or picked up in a book where, it was like around the month of August, and they had their divorce was finalized, but they remained together. And I think she was saying like how, he continued his little routine or whatever, even though they still were a couple. But then 2 months after that, about 3 months after that, in November, he invited her to a studio session that he was having. And so she had came to the studio with him. When she walked in, she sat at her own little spot within the studio, and there was a lot of people there. He asked her, did she want a drink? She said, yeah. She asked for wine. He left. And then she said he came back, and when he came back, it was a lady that he made eye contact with. And he had 2 drinks in his hand. Instead of him walking over and giving her one drink, he gave the lady a drink. But I found it a little baffling, because I'm like, okay, he gave this lady a drink. Obviously, that's going to make Karrine a little bit more jealous. So he'll walk over there and give her a drink, because in my mind, as I'm reading this part, I'm like, okay, he running game. But even after he gave that lady a drink, he kept the other drink to himself. So I was like, damn, that's kind of bogus. So she's sitting up there waiting, and he never gave her a drink. He never went and gave her, got her a glass of wine. So she got mad. So she got up and she left. Because this studio, like she said, it was near a hotel, near a parking garage of a hotel. But there was like some type of bar within proximity as well. So when she left, she went to this bar, and then, she congregated with a couple of other patrons and, had some drinks. And she said she stayed for like over an hour, and she drank enough to where she became tipsy. But, Aaron had never showed up. Now, for me, I'm suspecting that, she had the idea that Aaron would get, if not at least concerned for the fact that she left the studio, that he'll kind of be worried about where the fuck did she go to. Well, not where she go to, but why is she gone for like over an hour? Number one, when she left the studio, she didn't mention anything about him showing any type of jealousy, even though I do feel like, that move that he made was also to get at her. In other words, it was game. I do think it was a little too bold, but the fact that she got up and left, I feel like that's a little tit for tat as well. Of course, she upset. It doesn't take away from her hurt, but her being gone that long, I think she expected that he would come check for her, in which he never did. So after an hour of her drinking and being there, she got up and she walked back toward the studio. She wasn't intentionally trying to walk back to go back into the studio. She was trying to head back toward her car. By the time she got close enough to the studio, because like I said, this is within this hotel parking garage, because she said the studio is not too far from that, she seen him coming out with a female. And I think it was the same female that he was... No, it could have been somebody else, but either it was somebody else or the same female that he was making eye contact with. By the way, let me show my hands. And, of course, I never read no fucking papers when I'm doing this. Anyway, he came out with this woman, but she noticed, like, they was being playful, and the lady jumped on his shoulder. And that's when she kind of lost it. And then she ran up and she was like, get the fuck off my husband's shoulder. Aaron got mad. They started arguing. He was like, hold on, we're not married in the first place. And this lady, he pointed out the fact that this lady was an innocent person. She was just his sister's neighbor, his sister Samantha's neighbor. And Karrine said in her book that she found that pretty much to be a BS excuse, because she referenced the time when she read his emails. Aside from that lady Felicia Fats, this is when she went to a little additional detail and pointed out the fact that this very lady, who was supposed to have been his sister's neighbor, was somebody who also was sending inappropriate emails to Aaron and vice versa. So they got into it about that, and he was trying to get her to leave, so he started shoving her head into the car using his forearm. Make a long story short, so they got into it. I think the police was called, and he didn't. Basically, they got into it. He put his. When they got into it, I don't think he went back. I can't remember off top. I don't think he went back home. But she did say like she got depressed once again, and she lost weight all over again, and she was in a state of a rut. So by the time February 1st came, something happened, and this right here, I can kind of attest to it, but I don't think it was that extreme compared to hers. She said she had this little moment to where she landed in bed, and when she got up the next morning, and this could be February 2nd, because I think she said this little, she had like some type of epiphany. It could have been the 1st of February, or it could have been the 2nd of February, but she had some type of epiphany to where she got up and she was just like, fuck that, I don't need this. And she was also pointing out her life situation around this time as well. As far as like, you know, her bills and anything practical, she didn't have enough money to afford to pay her rent in the first place. She said she only had like $6,000. Yeah, she only had like $6,000, or the rent was yeah, she had about $6,000, I think she said, or the rent was $6,000. But you know, the rent that she'd have to pay, she would not have been able to afford it in the first place the following months, and she wasn't gonna get paid until April. So when she had this epiphany, she just decided to just give it all up and move and leave her home. And, you know, I guess settle for something less, because she ended up moving to an apartment. But anyway, you know, she decided to go ahead and backtrack and take this load off her shoulder. So she woke her son up, and she was like, come on. She got him up. She made the decision to go look for apartments, etc. She had furniture there that she had purchased originally, and it was about $30,000 altogether. She ended up selling that for like $3,000 to add to her budget so she could move. And like almost 2 weeks later, around February the 14th, you know, that's when she moved. Now the thing is, she didn't want to let Aaron know where she was moving to, because she wanted to kind of like rejuvenate herself. Again, based on this epiphany she had. Before I go on, let me just say, I had a little experience like that. Like I said, I don't think it was that extreme, but you know, I had a little female that I was messing with for a little bit. This is like about 10 years ago. I had a little female I was messing with, and I was real salty because we had stopped talking. And you know what I'm saying, I was going through my little emotional shit, and I was salty for a minute. I'm up here playing fucking slow songs and shit. So I'm in the crib, right? And I'm in my little somber mood and dwelling. And then all of a sudden, it was in a split second. I was like, man, fuck that shit. You know what I'm saying? To kind of like summarize it up, I was like, man, F all that. It's hard to put that shit in words. It was like you know the term volition? It was like taking control and exercising supreme volition within a split second to where you just click. You know, just think of it like a fucking robot. You know what I'm saying? So you got like a robot. Robot has two modes. A robot is in one particular mode, and it's hard for this robot to get out of this mode. But something happens to where inside this computer system, the robot self-clicks and gets into another program instantly without thinking about the one former to it. That's the best way that I can explain it. So when she had this epiphany, based on like the way that she explained it in her book, you know, I was like, okay, I can sort of relate to that. But that's what happened. Something clicked in her head to where she, you could say, like, completely accepted, like had this instantaneous reflection of accepting everything as it was, and just saying, you know what, instead of me like stressing over this guy, it is what it is. But aside from me, but also me considering like my financial situation, really, I don't need to keep this place where I'm at. I can backtrack and I'll be fine and still be happier rather than having like an unnecessary load on my shoulder. I think all that came into play within a split second. Again, going back to the metaphor or to the example as far as like a robot with two fucking programs. You know, you got one that this robot is entrenched in mentally, and then all of a sudden he or she is able to turn this program off immediately and then go to another one within this fucking mainframe and not like backtrack. That's kind of like what happened with her situation, so I could kind of understand where she's going with that. Only thing is, it didn't last that long because, you know, she did have communications with that guy Aaron, and she said like, you know, he gave her some money. Only reason why she fell back and had to get money from him, thus him finding out the address of where she was moving to, is because in the midst of her moving, right, she had her SUV and she had her Mercedes. On this day when she was on February the 14th, when she moved, she had the Mercedes, she had the SUV, and then 2 moving trucks behind her. She's going down a certain strip because she said where she lived or moved to, which was an apartment, so it was a big backtrack, and she was like it was 30 minutes away. But the strip that she was going down, you had a whole bunch of restaurants and stuff like that. So one of the valet guys opened somebody's door. He's on the right side of the street. He opened the door, and her car accidentally side-swiped this fucking door and then knocked off the rear view mirror. And that's what happened. And so, aside from her like selling her furniture for like $3,000 and backtracking into this apartment in order to have a better budget, right? She had a plan to sell her cars as well. Or trade them in. So, you know, it's hard to put this shit into words. Basically, trade her cars in so she can maintain a budget. But, you know, because the mirror got broken off her fucking car, you know, she figured in order for them to get it mechanically fixed, it was going to cost even more money rather than her getting it fixed herself. Only thing is, she would not have been able to afford it at that time. So the only option that she had available is to call this guy Aaron back. And of course, her doing that, it's inevitable that he would have to find out where she lived at. So she had to call this guy back, and that's when he gave her $600. She was salty, but it is what it is. So she had to backtrack and get back into this relationship with this guy, even though they still continue to be divorced. So then after that, what was it? Fast forwarding, right? After that situation happened, her and him still had they little back and forth dealings. Thing is, she brought up his son Jonah, and she once again brought up an anecdote. She mentioned, well, not even an anecdote, but I guess she provided a little bit more background as far as what was going on with her son. Come to find out, she said his baby mama was trying to get or regain custody of Jonah. When she first lost custody, I don't know, I guess it was a lack of comprehension on her part, but you know, she was thinking like the papers that she was signing, I'm talking about Jonah's mother, his biological mother, was like for like joint custody or something like that, or temporary joint, something. In other words, when she signed these papers, she didn't think that it was her giving up the rights to her child to Aaron. But that's what ultimately ended up happening. So she had to go through the legal system in order to regain custody. The thing is, she had help from her parents. And Karrine was saying how this lady had a father who had purchased a house for her. And by this time period, she had found somebody else who she had got married to and was with as well. So she wanted to have her son, Jonah, back in the picture. And Karrine pointed out that she herself wasn't mad at that she understood that. So the thing is, as far as like Aaron, right, this is going to bring it up to around April 2011. And I find this suspicious on Karrine's part as well. You know, they going through the little system trying to get custody of Jonah as far as Aaron's baby mama. And she was saying like these people was hiring, I guess, a private, she didn't say they hired a private detective, but, you know, she said like these people, they was kind of like monitoring Aaron, trying to find out what was going on with him. But Karrine herself had a conversation with Jonah's grandmother. Now, this is where I find Karrine to be a little bit wrong, and this is suspicious on her part as well. She claimed that she says that she ended up giving this lady all kinds of background information about Aaron, but she was saying like it would be information that would concern anybody. She basically told the lady, the grandmother of Jonah, that Aaron would take Jonah on these little journeys with him to the studio and etc. to a lot of places that a young kid should not be taken to, because it wouldn't be suitable for them. And also that he had this little view of Jonah being equivalent to Michael Jackson's child. You know how like Michael Jackson, you know, paid the mother to let him have full custody of his kids? It was like the same idea. And I'm like, okay, I'm not that I agree with it, but I don't think Karrine was exaggerating, only because of what I read, you know, not a few chapters, but like probably like when I was midway through the book, when she was talking about like what was it, in 2009, June of 2009, when Aaron came in and she was like, where the fuck you been at? And he was like, well, Michael Jackson died, bitch. So I could see, you know, I don't think she lied in particular on that part. He did have that. I guess he was kind of like, you know, he felt like that was his child. He could do what he wanted to do with his child. But she was kind of looking at it like he was being irresponsible, taking this child or Jonah to these places. And also what she pointed out after the fact, when she was like, in her diaries that I mentioned, how, you know, like 9 p.m., 1 a.m., and at 4 a.m., how he'll grab Jonah out the bed and take Jonah to these studios and stuff like that. Remember, this is a little shorty. Jonah was only born in 2007. So in 2009, Jonah would be just barely 2 years old. Or 2 years old, actually. So I don't think she was necessarily lying on that part. I just don't see why she would choose to all of a sudden communicate that to the grandmother of Jonah, knowing that these people was going through the legal system trying to get custody of Jonah. So I feel like she did that to get back at Aaron as well, considering these past fucking deeds that he did, not deeds, but these past bogus acts and shit like that. And as far as recent as what happened the day that she went to the studio, you know, stuff like that. I feel like she did that on purpose and would have known better to do some shit like that, because she did state in the book when I was reading this that she knew that Aaron would try to get back at her in some type of way, shape, or form. So yes, that was a form of tit for tat. So after that little conversation, in April, around mid-April, she was in her apartment, and then she started hearing these, you know, somebody was banging on her fucking door. So she go to the door, she look in the peephole, and she see 4 people, 3 officers, and then the guy. And, you know, the officers, they looked like they was real anxious. She opened the door. She said all 3 of them had their hands on their guns, on the butt of their guns. And, you know, again, they was looking all kind of like they was excited. And then the guy that was standing behind him walked up and, you know, explained to her who he was. He was a guy named, I think she said Roberto. Yeah, Roberto Fernandez. I was trying to pronounce the Ro. But basically, Roberto Fernandez. And he was an agent for the DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services. And what had happened was somebody had called them and told them that that there was some type of abuse going on with her son Naeem. And so they went into details, and they said the caller claimed that she was running the whole house, and not just running the whole house, but she had drugs, people coming in doing drugs, taking drugs, etc., all kind of shit like that, and that she was also being neglectful of Naeem, and that he was starving. So she was like, okay, no, that's not the case, and she got pissed off. And, she assured the officers that everything was all right as far as Naeem. That's basically where I stopped at. But also, lastly, she said she knew that the person that made this call was Aaron. And again, that's the tit for tat. She felt like he was trying to get back at her for, unveiling all that shit that she did to the grandmother of Jonah. So that's where I'm at. So I'm on page 125. So again, going back tomorrow, I start from there. I'm almost done with the book, because I thought it was 207 pages, but it's actually 204 altogether, at least in this revised version. So yeah, I go back tomorrow and I start from 125. So that's what happened. I don't think there's anything else that I need to point out. June 21st, a little bit after, it's around 7 something. I can't check the time on this phone because I'm just looking at the fucking video recording. But yeah, I'll holler at y'all YouTube. And again, this is just my little journeys and shit, reading different literature and things like that. Not nobody else's motherfucking homework. But I'll holler at y'all.